Kate, thank you very much for joining us today and allowing me to talk to you about professional development. So one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is how you approach planning for your learning. So how do you go about identifying your learning needs, for example?
So I think I probably have a very responsive kind of approach to my learning, that what stimulates me to think about what I need to learn is really what I'm doing day to day. And so sometimes I'll actually just keep a list, sometimes it's literally on my desk, of things that I need to know about or feel like I just don't know enough about. And so that will guide some of my learning. But then also coming to conference, kind of taking more of an overview and a step back to look at what are my larger learning needs as well for my own kind of personal and professional development.
Do you find that sharing those with a colleague helps you refine what to focus on?
I think that's really useful, but in reality that doesn't happen very often. So yes, the concept of it is great, and I have previously, when I've led our peer review group, tried to initiate conversations in our peer review group to have a group conversation about our learning. And that was quite difficult. So it was really difficult to actually initiate that conversation with people.
But that sounds like a really good approach, actually. What does a good peer discussion session look like for you?
So around our learning, or in general?
In general.
That's a really great question, because I love peer review group. I love it because it's supportive. And it's a non-threatening learning experience. So I find it a really good place to be able to admit things that I don't know, things that I need to know about, or to get ideas about how other people approach things, problems in the way that their practices run, or in their learning, or mistakes really that we've made.
And I think it's important to have an environment where you can share and know that it's in the context of an improvement. So that's really heartening to hear about. So do you use peers, whether in a peer group setting or just within your practice, to talk about the value or the impact of learning and what you actually get out of a learning activity?
Probably not on that level. We talk a lot about what we need to learn, but not necessarily about the impact of learning.
So how do you know if a learning activity like some of the ones you'll experience here at the conference are of value? Are going to have an impact on, I guess, ultimately patient outcomes?
That's a really good question, because I don't know that, really. And there is this concept of reflecting on what you've learned. And but I think sometimes we're so busy that we don't actually have time to reflect as well, to actually sit down and think, well, what did I learn, from that last speaker who was amazing? And I just, want to kind of record the entire thing so that I can listen to it again, because I'm worried that, in fact, I'm going to lose that knowledge and I'm not going to have a way of actually going back and going through it again.
I think you raise a really good point, that often we're so busy in the melee of everyday existence sometimes, and just getting through to the end of the day, that those moments where you want to stop and actually say, well, why did I do this? And how will I know if it's useful? Do pass us by. So what would be one way of addressing that? How could we enable that with the profession? Do you think the profession needs a little bit more flexibility or a little bit more time to be able to actually stop and think about these things?
Yeah, ideally that would be amazing. I just don't know where that is, I guess. I don't know where that time comes from.
No, I guess the more time we're afforded, the more time we'll place it on things that are perhaps better for work-life balance. But
there's also this concept of, oh my God, if I've got something else to do, when am I going to do that? When can I actually, fit that in? Really?
But in theory, if we were able to put a bit more time into professional development, you're suggesting to me that more time to consider the value of our learning would actually be useful?
Be beneficial, I think, because it's part of the CBD when we look at what your goals are, and then you go back and look at whether you've achieved some of those goals. And I don't often actually do that. I don't have time to actually think, yes, that's what I set out to do, but what did I actually achieve? But when I do it, I feel really good because I have done it.
Yes.
And so I I actually learned that I am learning and I'm growing and moving on, and I recognise that for a moment, and that's really worthwhile in terms of for my own self-worth and my
I think that's wonderful, and you identifying that when you do have that opportunity to revisit those goals where you've been successful, that really makes you feel good and drives things forward. And of course the ultimate goal of all our professional development is around improving not only ourselves but patient outcomes ultimately, I guess. What would you say to your colleagues out there if you gave them a tip about engaging in professional development? What would you say is important, the most important take-home message?
I think it's about driving your own learning, really. It's about taking responsibility for what you want to learn, and defining that for yourself and moving that forward. And I think if that is your own individualised learning plan, and then to be able to take a moment to actually recognise all that good work that you've done as well at the end of that. Yeah, so really a self-directed program.
Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much for your time. Pleasure talking with you. Thank you.